The New Year's Eve celebration was anticipated to be a grand affair for the extended family. The hostess had dedicated days to preparing for her relative's arrival, investing considerable effort, passion, and finances into crafting the perfect feast. However, the atmosphere took a sharp turn when the mother-in-law conspicuously presented her daughter with expensive jewelry, while the daughter-in-law received only a worn-out apron. A heavy silence descended, punctuated only by the sounds of festive dishes being cleared from the table. Hello, dear listeners. I'm delighted to welcome you to my channel. I have a new, engaging story for you. Enjoy listening. Margarita had always cherished holidays, especially New Year's, a time for enchantment, gifts, and family gatherings. But this year promised something truly special. For the first time in her 5 years of marriage to Konstantin, they had decided to host a New Year's Eve dinner at their own residence, inviting his entire family. "Are you absolutely sure you can manage it?" Konstantin inquired doubtfully when she proposed the idea. "That's 15 people, not including us." "Of course, I can handle it," Margarita replied with a smile. "I'm not suggesting we do this every day." The idea had in fact stemmed from a deeper purpose. After she and Konstantin had moved into their own 3-bedroom apartment in a desirable neighborhood purchased with a mortgage, Margarita was eager to demonstrate to her husband's relatives that they were financially stable. This was especially important for her mother-in-law, Antonina Viktorovna, who had harbored a thinly veiled disdain for her daughter-in-law from the very beginning of their relationship. "Very well," Konstantin conceded. "We'll host the celebration at our place." And so, the preparations began. Margarita meticulously planned the menu, the table setting, and every minute detail, aiming for an impeccable top-tier experience. She spared no expense on either the ingredients or the home decorations. Ultimately, this wasn't just about New Year's. It was her opportunity to prove she was a worthy wife for Konstantin. A week before the holiday, Margarita took time off work to fully dedicate herself to the preparations. Her schedule was packed, with each day meticulously planned, grocery shopping, a thorough cleaning of the apartment, and preparing dishes that could be made in advance. Konstantin offered his assistance where he could, but the primary responsibility fell upon her. "Perhaps we could order some of the dishes from a restaurant," he suggested, observing his wife's ceaseless activity from morning till night. "No," Margarita firmly replied. "Everything must be homemade." She anticipated her mother-in-law's inevitable inquiries about whether the salads were store-bought and wanted to respond with pride that she had prepared everything herself. On New Year's Eve, Margarita rose at 6 in the morning. It was the final, most demanding day of preparation. As she was taking the roasted meat out of the oven, her mother-in-law called. "Antonina Viktorovna, hello!" Margarita answered brightly, balancing the phone between her ear and shoulder as she transferred the hot dish to the table. "Rita, I wanted to confirm. Your mother-in-law's voice was characteristically curt. What time should we arrive?" "We're expecting everyone at 7 in the evening," Margarita replied. "All right. And one more thing. What are you making for the main course? Konstantin has a childhood aversion to fish. I trust you haven't forgotten." Margarita closed her eyes for a moment. Of course, she knew her husband's preferences better than anyone. "Yes, Antonina Viktorovna, we'll have roasted beef and chicken roulades. No fish." "Good. See you this evening," her mother-in-law said, disconnecting without waiting for a reply. By 7 in the evening, everything was ready. The festive table was laden with an abundance of delicacies, a variety of salads, cold appetizers, 2 types of main courses, and desserts. Margarita had even baked and exquisitely decorated gingerbread cookies, making them look like they belonged in a glossy magazine. The apartment gleamed with cleanliness. The Christmas tree sparkled with lights, and a centerpiece of candles and fir branches adorned the table. "You've truly outdone yourself," Konstantin exclaimed with genuine admiration, surveying the results of her hard work. Margarita smiled. She had calculated that the entire preparation had cost nearly 40,000 rubles, a significant sum for their family, but she felt it was entirely worth it. Precisely at 7, the guests began to arrive. The first to arrive were Konstantin's parents, Antonina Viktorovna and Pavel Borisovich. The mother-in-law cast an appraising glance around the apartment, but remained silent. Then the rest of the family trickled in. Konstantin's sister Svetlana with her husband and their 2 teenage children, his cousins with their wives, an aunt and uncle, and several other distant relatives. The dinner commenced in a convivial atmosphere, with guests praising the dishes. Konstantin looked proudly at his wife, and Margarita felt the tension of the preceding days gradually easing. Even her mother-in-law offered a few approving nods while sampling a salad. After the main courses, just before dessert, Antonina Viktorovna suddenly stood up and declared solemnly, "I have small gifts for my girls." A hush fell over the room. The mother-in-law retrieved 2 boxes from her handbag, one larger than the other, the second quite small. "Sveta," she turned to her daughter, "this is for you. Happy New Year, my dear." Svetlana opened the small velvet box and gasped. "Mom, are these—" she began. "Yes," Antonina Viktorovna replied with pride. "Diamond earrings. I know you've wanted some for a long time." Svetlana immediately tried them on. The earrings were indeed exquisite, small yet elegant, adorned with genuine diamonds that sparkled under the glow of the festive lights. "And now," the mother-in-law turned to Margarita, "for you, Rita." Margarita accepted the second box with a flutter of anticipation. It was considerably larger than the first, and for a moment a flicker of hope ignited within Rita that her gift would be equally impressive. Perhaps it was an expensive set of dishes, or... But upon lifting the lid, she saw a folded apron. As she took it out and unfolded it, Margarita immediately noticed that the fabric was not new. It was slightly faded with barely visible stains that even meticulous care hadn't managed to remove. "This is my apron," her mother-in-law explained with a smile. "I used to wear it when Kostya and Sveta were little. I thought it might be useful for you. After all, you do enjoy managing the household so much." An awkward silence filled the room. All eyes shifted between the diamond earrings adorning Svetlana's ears and the worn apron in Margarita's hands. "Thank you," Rita managed to stammer, feeling a lump rising in her throat and her cheeks flushing crimson. She slowly stood up, still holding the apron. Then, without a word, she walked to the stove and turned off the burners one by one. Still waiting to be served were the duck with apples and her grandmother's signature roast. "Rita, what are you doing?" Konstantin asked, bewildered. But Margarita, as if not hearing him, began methodically clearing the salads and appetizers from the table, packing them into containers. "What are you doing?" her husband asked again, this time louder. "I prepared the New Year's feast for 15 of your relatives. I spent 40,000 rubles. Your mother gave your sister diamond earrings in front of everyone, and I received a used apron," Margarita stated in a calm voice, looking directly at her mother-in-law. Konstantin rose from his seat, his expression clearly indicating his desire to understand the situation. However, upon meeting his mother's gaze, he hesitated and sat back down. This was the final straw. Margarita silently continued clearing the food, while everyone sat in stunned silence. Finally, Antonina Viktorovna broke the silence. "And what is this childish sulking? How ungrateful!" "Mom," Svetlana said softly, removing the earrings. "That was truly inappropriate." "Inappropriate? What was inappropriate?" the mother-in-law retorted, raising her eyebrows. "I gave what I thought was suitable. I had promised you earrings long ago, and for Rita, a practical item." "A used, practical item," someone from the relatives interjected. Suddenly Pavel Borisovich, Konstantin's father, who was usually quiet and uninvolved in family matters, stood up. "Antonina," he said sternly, "you are crossing all boundaries. Rita invested so much time and effort to make our evening enjoyable, and you have humiliated her." "I haven't humiliated anyone," Antonina Viktorovna protested indignantly. "We simply have a special relationship with my daughter." "And what is your relationship with your daughter-in-law?" Pavel Borisovich inquired. "For 5 years, you have tormented her with your criticisms, and today you decided to show everyone her place in the family. Let her cook in an old apron while your daughter shines in diamonds." Antonina Viktorovna flushed. "Do not speak to me in that tone." "I will." her husband replied firmly. Because I am utterly tired of your games. Rita. He turned to Margarita. Please, don't clear anything away. I apologize on behalf of my wife. Margarita stopped, still holding a container of salad. She looked at her husband. And what do you have to say, Kostya? Will you remain silent again? All eyes turned to Konstantin. He slowly stood, walked over to his mother, and said quietly but firmly, Mom, you must apologize to Rita. What you did is unforgivable. I will not apologize, Antonina Viktorovna declared, tilting her chin. I did nothing wrong. Then you had better leave, Konstantin said, surprising everyone, including himself. What? My mother-in-law's eyes widened. You're kicking your own mother out over some apron. Not over the apron. Konstantin shook his head. But because you do not respect my wife or me, I have tolerated this for too long. Antonina Viktorovna glared at everyone, snatched her handbag, and headed for the exit. At the door, she turned back. You will regret this, Kostya. As the door closed behind her, silence descended upon the room. Then Svetlana approached Margarita and handed her the jewelry box. Take them, she said. They should have been yours. No, Rita shook her head. I don't want these earrings. I want respect. And you deserve it, Svetlana said, hugging her sister-in-law. Forgive us all for allowing Mom to behave this way for so long. After the mother-in-law's departure, the atmosphere at the table gradually lightened. Pavel Borisovich proposed a toast to Margarita's culinary talents, which everyone echoed, and the celebration continued, but with a newfound sincerity and warmth. Without Antonina Viktorovna's oppressive presence, everyone seemed to breathe more freely. Later that evening, after the guests had departed, Konstantin helped Margarita clear the table. Forgive me, he said quietly, for not standing up for you sooner. Why are you so afraid of your mother? Margarita asked. Konstantin sighed. I'm not afraid. She has always been a dominant personality, controlling everything. Father usually gave in, and I became accustomed to it, but today I realized that this is wrong. And now? Now, Konstantin stated firmly. Everything will be different. I will not allow her to treat you or us this way. And he kept his word. In the following months, relations with Antonina Viktorovna were strained. She attempted to regain her previous influence but was met with her son's unwavering stance. Konstantin insisted on respectful treatment for Margarita and was prepared to sever contact if this condition wasn't met. They received unexpected support from Pavel Borisovich, who, for the first time in many years of marriage, began to assert his opinion in arguments with his wife. This was a significant shock to Antonina Viktorovna. Don't you love me anymore? She asked her husband, tears welling up. I do, Pavel Borisovich replied. That doesn't mean I must always agree with you, especially when you are wrong. 6 months later, realizing her usual tactics were no longer effective, Antonina Viktorovna unexpectedly visited Margarita when Konstantin was not home. May I come in? She asked, her tone uncharacteristically uncertain. Margarita silently opened the door wider, allowing her mother-in-law to enter. I, Antonina Viktorovna began, her words clearly difficult to articulate. I came to apologize. What I did on New Year's Eve was cruel and unfair. Margarita looked at her with surprise. Why did you do that? She asked directly. What did I do to you? Antonina Viktorovna sank into a chair, suddenly appearing like an ordinary tired woman rather than a formidable mother-in-law. Nothing. You did nothing wrong. I was simply afraid of losing my son. I felt like you were taking him away from me, and I tried to assert my superiority. It was foolish and petty. I understand now, she paused, why you've decided to apologize now. Because I realized I could truly lose not only my son, but also my husband, and, she hesitated, I've started seeing a psychologist. It was Pavel's idea. Can you imagine? He gave me an ultimatum. Margarita couldn't help but smile, picturing her usually quiet father-in-law suddenly asserting himself. And what did the psychologist tell you? A lot, Antonina Viktorovna sighed. Mainly about how we, as parents, try to control our children even when they're grown, and that it's wrong. She paused and added, I'm not asking for immediate forgiveness, but I would like to start anew if you agree. Margarita gazed at her mother-in-law for a long moment, weighing her words. All right, she said at last. Let's try. But with one condition. No more manipulation or humiliation. We all deserve respect, both you and I. Antonina Viktorovna nodded. I promise. This marked a turning point in their relationship. Of course, not everything changed overnight. There were setbacks and relapses into old grievances, but Antonina Viktorovna genuinely made an effort to change, and Margarita and Konstantin gave her that opportunity. 2 years later, for another New Year's Eve, the entire family gathered again at Konstantin and Margarita's home. This time, they prepared the meal together. Antonina Viktorovna volunteered to assist her daughter-in-law, and when it was time for gifts, the mother-in-law presented Margarita with a small box. Inside were elegant silver earrings with amethysts. They aren't as expensive as those diamond ones, Antonina Viktorovna said, but I chose them with love and thought the amethyst would suit your eyes. Margarita hugged her mother-in-law, tears welling up. They are beautiful. Thank you. That evening, after the guests had left, Konstantin embraced his wife and whispered, You really did the impossible. You tamed my mother. Not me. Margarita shook her head. All of us together. And you know what I realized? Sometimes you just need to stop tolerating things and clearly set your boundaries, even if it's frightening. Did you throw away that apron? Konstantin suddenly asked. Margarita laughed. No, believe it or not, it's hanging in the pantry. I decided that someday I will tell this story to our children so they will know that any situation can be changed if you muster the courage and don't remain silent when you are being humiliated. They stood by the window, gazing at the festive city, contemplating how one unpleasant incident, a moment of courage, could alter an entire life, and that a true family is not defined by the absence of conflict, but by the ability to overcome those conflicts while maintaining mutual respect. And the worn apron remained in the pantry, a reminder of a past that they had all collectively outgrown.